I caught myself feeling really troubled a few days ago, and that was because of some uneasy conversation that I had with one of my trainees. And this trainee has been part of my group in Singapore, where I have been teaching NVC for the last 2 years. I had announced my third year training program, and this participant called me up and said that he was very pissed with me. And when I asked him what was the reason for him being upset, he turned back and said that, Anisha, you have announced this group and you have made it open to everybody, and you didn't even consult me before announcing this program. I was a little stunned. And I said, I'm not really understanding this. Like, why do I need to consult you? What's going on here? And it's like, last 2 years you've been announcing these programs, and I've always been attending. And then this third year, I just feel that I was entitled to have an opinion. And I said, yeah, when you say that, I'm guessing that what you were really needing is to matter and be important to me. And he said, yeah, that's what I wanted. And, maybe other trainees don't feel that way, but this is what I needed. And I said, well, I can understand your need. I just find this very overwhelming for me to attend to, because I announce a new training program each year, and then the participants are free to enroll if they enjoy what I'm offering. So just the way y'all have a choice, I would also like for my choice to be honored. And he said, no, I feel cheated, Anisha. I just feel taken advantage of and not, just completely taken for granted. So I said, can you say some more? He's like, I have registered for your training program, and then I get to know that, there are going to be participants from all across the globe. So I took a pause and I said, just a minute. You haven't registered for the program. You haven't paid the fees. You haven't filled the registration form. So what are you talking about? So he's like, yeah, I may have not filled the registration form and I may have not paid the fees, but I have been attending every year. So it's a given that I would attend this year as well. I said, yeah, that's from your side, but how does that mean I am taking advantage? I'm cheating you. So I think he also felt a little confused by what he was saying. So he said, Anisha, I'm just feeling very tired right now. And he just hung up abruptly. So when he hung up, I saw myself feeling really irritated. Because in that moment, I had this flashback of multiple instances where I have seen this participant do something similar. While he's been a participant in my group for the last 2 years, I remember that in the group, sometimes in the group he would pick up these issues with me, and he would, when the group members would ask him to share some observation, he would have no observations or facts, but he would just have some fantasies about my intention, and he would blame me for things that I just wouldn't understand. And when the group would challenge him back, he would kind of say, oh yes, I recognize that something is off here. And then post the session, he would approach me to say that he needs to process and he's still upset. And each time I would make myself available. And sometimes these conversations would last for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, and they were fairly intense. And they would often end with him being grateful to me and thanking me. But I would end up feeling very tired and exhausted. So in that moment, I started asking myself that, what's really going on here, Anisha? What's happening here? And it just dawned on me at that moment that there was a relational schema emerging between me and my trainee. And that was, we had these conversations each time he was having some anger towards me or he had a bone to pick with me. And then we would, in between sessions, we would talk for 1.5 hours sometimes and have this intensity between us. And it almost seemed like anger was the theme of our connection outside the group. And I started wondering if unconsciously this trainee was using anger to have contact with me outside the group timing. And that's the time I started feeling very upset. And I'm like, why the hell am I allowing this? But in the past, I had told him that this feels tiring and this just feels like a lot of work for me. But I hadn't really drawn his attention to the fact that I don't want to be doing this any further. So the next day when he called me back again, he said, yeah, I'm sorry, yesterday maybe I was selfish and I just hung up because I was tired and I don't know how you're feeling. And I said, frankly, I'm feeling quite pissed. And he's like, same odd. I said to him that I'm noticing this relational schema emerge between us, wherein anger seems to be the reason why we are connecting outside the group, and it just feels something about it doesn't feel right because the other trainees of mine don't get so much of my time outside the group, and I haven't contracted to help you process your feelings outside the group. So he said, what is so troublesome about that? And I said, listen, A, it's a lot of time, and 2, it just feels like a lot of emotional labor. And he said, well, Anisha, even I am doing emotional labor. This is not easy for me. And I said, yeah, surely this is not easy for you. I see it. And at the same time, you are doing emotional labor for your needs, for something that you need to process, for your own feelings, whereas I seem to be drawn into something that you are feeling and something that you need to process. So he said, well, if you've been feeling this way, then you should be, drawing your boundaries and not encouraging me. And I kind of had an ouch moment. But I saw the truth of what he was saying, and I said, yeah, I recognize I haven't been drawing my boundaries, and that's the reason I'm telling you right now that I'm not okay with this constant bickering outside the group. And then at that note, we hung up. But post that conversation, I've been thinking to myself that how come I got involved in this kind of a relational dynamic? And what came up for me is that I have this such strong belief that everything is co-created, and if anybody around me is feeling something, I want to look at what am I doing to, contributing to their feelings. And while that is a healthy thing to do, but I also recognize that makes me sometimes highly vulnerable and susceptible to becoming the container for other people's feelings. And even this whole thing that he said about boundaries, yeah, I have this awareness that I've struggled with, forget about drawing my boundaries, but even knowing my boundaries. And as I started reflecting on what does it mean to have boundaries, or, how do I want to protect my boundaries, I had some insights into knowing that what are the ways in which we would know that our boundaries are getting violated. And some of the signs that, stood out for me is, number one, that whenever you feel upset or drained with these repeated relational patterns in your relationships. Second, you feel like you are stating your preference about how you want to be treated, and yet the other person continues to treat you the way they want. Third, when you feel like you're becoming a dumping ground for other people to, project their feelings on you, and your humanity is not accounted for. And while these were some of my reflections, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts around this, friends? Have you experienced yourself in situations where your boundaries have been violated, and what do you do to protect your own boundaries and also at the same time respect the boundaries of others?